Hi, my name is Heather from Fork in the Loaf blog. Today we are going to be starting our sourdough starter. Now our sourdough starter is about a 5 or 6 day process. It's going to take just flour and water and time. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing a process called fermentation. So the sourdough starter, when you ferment it, it creates a lactic acid and pulls in the wild yeasts from the air and from the flour or from the grains that you use. When I make sourdough, I do a full ferment sourdough. Everything that I make with sourdough is a full ferment. A lot of people will take sourdough starter and add some to the biscuits, and then they add fresh flour and they mix it up and they cut it into biscuits and then they bake it that way. I don't. All the flour that I use is fermented, and it's fermented for about 8 to 12 hours or more. So on the grains, there is an enzyme or a phosphorus called phytic acid, and it is a anti-nutrient. It doesn't just inhibit you from absorbing. So the phytic acid will bind to the minerals that you consume, like the phosphorus, the magnesium. It'll bind to those minerals so that when you eliminate, it eliminates a lot of those nutrients with it, which is why they call it an anti-nutrient. When you ferment the flour and the water, it creates what's called lactic acid, and the lactic acid actually reduces the pH of your bread, which also reduces the phytates by up to 90%. When you reduce those phytates, you are going to increase your mineral absorption. You're going to have more minerals to absorb. For me, sourdough bread is easier to digest. I have what I would call it a gluten intolerance. I've never been diagnosed with it, but the fermenting process actually degrades the glutens in the flour, and so it's a little easier for digestion for those people that are intolerant or that have a hard time digesting glutens. It unlocks some of the other nutrients that you can get in your flours. So with that being said, I just want to show you how to start it. So this is day 1, and every day for the next 5 or 6 days, I'm going to show you the next step. Okay, so this is just plain flour. I'm not doing it by weight. I'm literally just going to take a tablespoon of flour, and that's it. For day 1, we are just using a tablespoon of flour. And the reason I'm going to do just a tablespoon is because I don't want to have to discard. And if I just keep it small enough, I shouldn't have to discard. 1 tablespoon of water. I got 1 tablespoon of flour, 1 tablespoon of water. I'm going to stir this up, and I'm just going to get it kind of like paste. That's it. And I'll just show you here. Just like that. I'm going to just take a canning flat. So I'm just going to set it on here. I don't want to put anything tight on there. I do want a little bit of air to escape and possibly get in. So I'm just going to set that lightly on there, and I'm going to set it off to the counter. Okay, it is day 2 in the morning. So there's the starter. It doesn't have it has no activity yet. It smells like flour and water still. Okay, I'm going to add 1 tablespoon of flour, and then I'm going to take 1 tablespoon of filtered water. And just going to mix that in. I kind of like this way because I don't have to do any discard. So, as of day 2 now, we have our 1 tablespoon from day 1 and our 1 tablespoon from day 2 of flour and water. No activity yet, still smells like flour and water. Okay, I just kind of want to show you. I'm hoping you can see on the surface there's kind of a little bit of liquid forming. The liquid on the top is called hooch, and it is an alcohol that's created from the fermentation process. You can toss it, like there's really not enough up there right now for me to toss, so I'll just stir that in. Instead of tossing it, it is still smelling like flour and water, just a hint of sour. Today I'm going to put 2 tablespoons of flour and 2 tablespoons of water. Now mind you, I'm using a stainless steel knife in here, and I like to do that when it's this light, and it doesn't hurt it if you're just using it to mix it. I have seen people proof their dough in a stainless steel bowl, and it works. I think as long as it's stainless steel, it should be okay. And I use cast iron pans, and after I form the loaves for my bread, I raise them in cast iron, and that's fine. I just avoid using a lot of stainless steel. I will use it to stir, I'll use it to measure. I will even scoop it out with measuring cups that are made with stainless steel. So this is day 3. I did not discard any. I'm just kind of building it right now. So I'm going to let that sit back. It is starting to smell a little sour. I'm going to set this back on my counter just with a little cap on it, and I'll see you tomorrow for day 4. Okay, it is day 4. There is now 4 tablespoons of flour, 4 tablespoons of water. So I'm not having to discard any yet. I'm going to take a 1/4 cup measuring cup spoon, 1/4 cup of flour. It is just starting to bubble. It's just taking on a hint of sour. It has more of that sour smell now than the flour smell, which is what we're looking for. So day 4, I've got a 1/4 cup of flour, and I have 1/4 cup of water. It's really only about that full. I'm going to see if maybe later today if it rises a little bit, and if it does, I'll get a picture of it for you. Let's put that in here until tomorrow. Okay guys, it is the evening of day 4, and I just wanted to show you all those bubbles. And this is kind of what they call a false start. So you'll look at this and you'll think, oh goody, it's time to make bread. It's not time to make bread yet. It will still take another day or 2 before it's actually ready to start making bread. And it'll actually fool you in the next day or 2, I'm thinking. And it'll make you believe that it's dead. It actually could go both ways. It could make you feel like it's totally ready. It could make you feel like you flocked it and that nothing is going to, that it's dead and that you have to throw it out. That is not the case. So I will show you tomorrow what happens with day 5 in the morning. See you then. Good morning. It is day 5. Last night it rose. If you remember correctly, I showed it to you. It was about up to somewhere up here. So it has deflated again. It is super bubbly. I hope you can see that okay. It's starting to smell sour. So in our container here, we have roughly a 1/2 cup of flour and a 1/2 cup of water that we have built up in the last 4 days. So today is day 5. I'm going to go against convention. I'm going to tell you, do not discard this. Take your 1/2 cup of flour and 1/2 cup of water, stir it in, and I will show you what it looks like tonight. And sometimes I would start trying to make a loaf of bread tonight. I think, judging by the behavior of this, I might give it one more night, and we will try again tomorrow night to see. Well, we'll check it tonight. Well, let's just see what happens. Okay, so for day 5, I'm going to add a 1/2 cup of flour, and I don't have a ton of room in there, so I'm going to try and keep it pretty close to a 1/2 cup. And you got to remember, it is going to double in size when the cultures get fed. They become very active. So, and I'm going to keep it at 100%. I do know when you keep a wetter hydration, it won't, the tendency to bubble over is less. It's like the bubbles don't have enough structure to rise it so far that it might spill over. So for in this beginning stages, I like to, until I figure out where we're at, I like to just keep it kind of on the wet side. Keep it from exploding or rising over the edges. This is actually cutting it kind of close. So what I will do is this afternoon, when I check it, and I'll show it to you this afternoon, I will make sure to kind of flatten it or pound it down or stir it so that I release some of the air bubbles that are happening from the fermentation, and show you how I do that so that it doesn't fall over. And really, for safety's sake, I'm going to put this on a plate because it is full. I'm hoping to have enough that I can try for a loaf of bread tonight. And I will see you later on this evening. Good morning. So this is day 6 of our sourdough starter. I just want to show you, it looks like there's no bubbles in there. It has, let's see if I can get your top shot here. It's got bubbles and foaminess on the top. It smells a bit sour. It's not dead. It's not failed. It's just being a little slower, or it does this false bubble for you. And usually it's around day 4, at least in my experience. So I'm going to keep this another day. I didn't make bread with it last night because it did rise and it fell, and that's okay. I'm going to discard some of this time, and I can put it in another jar. I could make pancakes with it, like to make a batch of pancakes that I would sit on my counter overnight. I wouldn't suggest using it for bread yet. I don't think it's strong enough for that yet. And I can just tell, let me show you my starter. So this is my starter. Now, of course, my starter is a thicker mix. But I fed my starter about the same time I fed this starter. So, and part of that difference could be that there's more water in here. I used 100% hydration in here. I used 50% hydration in my starter. But I do know you should see more bubbles. And so I'm thinking it's not strong enough yet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take half of this out. And I know this is a 2-cup pint sized jar. I have at least a cup in here. So I'm going to take out a half of a cup. Oops, I should be showing you this, sorry. Okay, so I've taken half of, this is a quarter of a cup. There's a half a cup. And see, we have, I don't know if you can see it in there very well. We have about that much starter left in here. At this point, I have about 3/4 of a cup of starter in here. So I'm going to add just a half a cup of flour. And I'm going to use a 1/4 cup because it fits in here better without making a mess. So there's 1, 2. There's a half a cup of flour. At this point, I don't really want to add any more water to it. I want it to start to thicken just a little bit. I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of water to it. We're not quite at 100%. We're not quite at 50%. We're like 75%-ish. My sourdough math. Now the danger and the risk of having it this thick in a jar this full is it could bubble over, but I will watch it and keep an eye on it. It'd be a couple hours before it gets up to there. So now that I've thickened it a little bit, I will check back with you tomorrow or tonight. Let's see how what happens, and we might make a loaf of bread with it. Talk to you later. Try it. Check out where your starter is at day 6. You can even try a loaf of bread. It's not hard, and it's not going to take a lot of effort. And if you mess up, the worst that can happen is you're going to get a brick for a loaf. And really, that works great for stuff like bread pudding. You can use that in French toast bake. You can use it for all kinds of things. So it's not like it's not like it's just a big waste if you mess up. Better to try it and mess up than not try it at all. Good luck until our next adventure on Fork in the Loaf.